Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spraglin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to gather a cadre of writers, thinkers, and teachers who are transforming the world, one character at a time. And it all starts with one thing: a deep understanding of human motivation, why people do what they do, and the forces that drive them. To gain that understanding, I am mining the intersection of psychology, theology, and philosophy to make you a better writer. Today's episode is called How to Zettelkasten an Idea. We have been working for a time with starting a Zettelkasten and having a common set of cards that we can share so that I can talk about ideas. There's always a challenge with a Zettelkasten because until you have a Zettelkasten, it's hard to talk about how to work with a Zettelkasten. And if you're dealing with a very large Zettelkasten, then everything can get too scattered and it's hard to understand how you work with a Zettelkasten when it's still quite small. So we began, and it's been several episodes now in the podcast, and over in LilyPub, by the way, I am gathering these episodes without the preamble and putting them all together as a tutorial so that you can go back through and see all of the episodes that come together to make these cards in the Zettelkasten. And also over there in LilyPub, I'm going to give you create a file of the cards that have been created so far. So that's some future promises. If you join today, don't expect to see them today, but in the next days and weeks, I'm going to be gathering these things. Now, the interesting thing is we started with my new book, Writing with Emotion. It's a pretty terrific book in and of itself, but we used this because it's small enough, it's 70 pages, and yet it's quite detailed. And especially when you get into the section that details the character traits and groups them by character trait group and subgroup and the individual character traits, it's very hierarchical, and therefore it's very easy to see the structure of the Zettelkasten. So it makes a great example of how to get a Zettelkasten off the ground. And we've created a number of cards so far, and I've placed them in a little box. Now, these are the cards that we've created so far. Not so many. You can catch up easily. And yet, it gives us something concrete that we can talk about. Now, when your Zettelkasten is small, you don't want a giant folder, a file group like this. You want something smaller. So here's an example of something that works very well. It's an empty box that holds envelopes, and I've cut it down so that it's easy to see your cards. And that works very well for storing some cards. Another thing that works well is checks used to always come in these nice little sturdy boxes. Oh, is that ever nice? It's a perfect fit for your cards, and a great one when your Zettelkasten is very small, like this one. Now, what you can put even to fill up that extra space is some blank file cards. That always works. Another gadget that I make that I might as well share with you. I think I've shown this on a couple of different videos. I gather junk mail, cut it to size, put a file card on either side of it to make it sturdy, and make these little bundles. Now, these wonderful little bundles are great whenever you have to move to another bigger box, because you're always going to have extra space, and these can take up that extra space. They're free because they're made out of junk mail, and because they're smallish, they keep a very nice working V so that it's really easy to work with your cards. Can't beat free. Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about adding a couple of cards to the note box, because we want to talk about thinking about where a new card goes. Now, as you'll recall, this whole series started with syntopical reading using a Zettelkasten. Syntopical reading is just reading two or more books at the same time, Or since you have a Zettelkasten, you can read them sequentially. And the book that we're using to form the base book, Lay Down a Foundation, is this one. And then we're adding other sources as we go. Chiefly, right now, I've been drawing from this tome, Character Strengths and Virtues by Christopher Peterson and Martin Seligman. It's an excellent source. And today's cards that we're working on adding are either from that book or from thoughts that came about by reading that book. Because that's the fun thing about a Zettelkasten, is you can take what you find in two different books and put them together and another idea will pop out. And that really starts getting your mind expanding, getting your thinking going, jumpstarting your creativity, and also getting yourself ready to make a contribution in your field, because these new ideas that pop up can be a very valuable addition that others will want to know about too. So we're going to begin with adding, we're just going to focus on 2 cards today, and depending on how much time we have, we could do another. So we're going to begin with a card that we have already created. I'm going to put 2 cards that we've already created some time ago. I had them originally and then they went away. There we go. Remember our card 4D? Our card 4D was at that spot in Writing with Emotion where we said that it was the taxonomy of the character traits, and it was the 4th section of the book. And then from there, we made individual cards for each of the character trait groups: resilience, balance, insight, empathy. And we added another card on the nature of a taxonomy, which came out of the Peterson and Seligman book. And we did that before. Now we're going to add another card, and this card is on the theory behind the character traits. Now, the card we last added was 4D5, came out of the Seligman book, where they were saying the nature of a taxonomy. And they were saying, do not confuse a taxonomy with a classification. A taxonomy has an underlying theory that organizes the data and provides some other great values. So that led to a question in my mind. Well, then, what is the theory that underlies the character traits? And the answer to that is it's the struggle, because each of the groups of character traits was based on a different struggle. Resilience had to do with struggling against the forces of nature and the physical world. Balance had to do with the struggle of staying in control of your own self. Insight was the struggle to understand the world around you, and empathy was the struggle to live in company with others and in society with others. So it's always that struggle. And also when we went from the character trait group down to the individual subgroups, it was a difference in struggle. And even the individual character traits, all slightly different struggles. So it's the struggle that underlies the taxonomy of the character traits. So that was not a card that I had in the book, but it's a realization that I made when thinking about this concept of a taxonomy has to have an underlying structure. It has to have an underlying theory. So now the question comes in is, where does this card go? And for that, it's an expansion of the idea in 4D, the taxonomy of the character traits. It goes a little deeper into what is the underlying theory, and so it deserves to go right after this card. Well, this is a very busy card. It already had 5 things that had to go right after it. The 4 groups, plus that new one that we added from the Peterson and Seligman book. So this is one more that needs to go right after. So our effortless numbering system tells us it just becomes card number 6, 4D6. And all 6 of these can validly claim to be right under 4D because it branches out like a tree. Now this is a tree that has 6 limbs to start with. So then the only other thing we had to decide from this one was how were we going to title it and what were we going to index. And so I titled it Theory of Character Traits is the Struggle, and I indexed Theory, Character, Traits, and Struggle. All of those got made, and each one of those entries was Theory of Character Traits is the Struggle. It's so valuable later on when you're looking at struggle. Oh, this is the one on the Theory of Character Traits is the struggle versus something else that's talking about struggle. You know where you are. The extra information in the index is enormously valuable. Now we're going to place another card, another idea. And this one, we haven't given a number yet. So we're going to take a look at how should we number this card. Now, the new card that I'm going to place is is talking about the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Manual for Psychological Problems. And it comes off of a note that I made on my bib card. And I want to place it into the Zettelkasten. Now, what this note is about, it's what a taxonomy implies. Peterson and Seligman say that a taxonomy has a lot of weight to carry. And that they indicate that some of the implications of a taxonomy, as opposed to just a classification, is that a taxonomy has to have a deep structure, a theoretical deep structure, a deep structure based on theory. It has to be exhaustive. It has to have something called reification, which is making an abstract thing concrete. Once it's concrete, it's measurable. So taking something that's abstract and fuzzy and turning it into something concrete and measurable. Reification. I had to look that one up. And the fourth thing they said is it has to be accountable to quarreling factions. Nah, I don't think any taxonomy has any, although I think it has to have sensitivity to the different uses of the taxonomy, definitely. I don't know about quarreling factions. I will let that one go. But the question is, where are we going to put this one? It seems to me it is coming off the Character, Strengths, and Virtues, the Peterson and Seligman book. So I am thinking that it belongs right after card 4D5, The Nature of a Taxonomy, which also came out of that book. So I am going to give it the number 4D5A. It extends 4D5 into another concept. So right now, I am going to give that card a number. It is now 4D5A. And this card also has an interesting one that I want to share with you. It's 3 cards in one. I think I've mentioned before that if a main card extends beyond 1, I lop off the corner, and then that way it makes it really easy in your box to get all of the ones that relate to that in a package, and you're not having to sort through and say, how far does this go? It's all of these. It's just a very convenience. Okay, so we have its number, 4D5A, and it's going to go into the index, implications of a taxonomy, and it relates to DSM, the Diagnostic Manual. And so I'm going to index implications, taxonomy, and DSM. And once I've done that indexing, then I can place this card into my little Zettelkasten here, which is now just grown. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in to 4D5. And that means it's going right in front of our other new card, 4D6. So I hope that helps with how to Zettelkasten an idea. The basic idea is every card belongs right after the most closely associated card. Not to worry if there's more than one card that belong right after that card. When we have that going on, we take a colorful card, this is a pastel colored card, and make a directory of all of the cards that logically belong right after our main card. So our card 4D now is getting quite a family. He now has 6 children. This card has 6 child cards. And some of these have grown quite a bit in their own right. So it's pretty exciting to already watch our Zettelkasten grow. And I do have some more cards because I've been busy, but I think that's all the time that we have right now to go into it. So I will stop it right here, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.